This is the DTV Digest, the podcast that brings you news and reviews of films which didn't make it to the cinema. And now, here's your host, Mike Parkin.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the DTV Digest. I'm your host, Mike Parkin, and joining me tonight are Richard Hawes.
Hello, everyone.
We also have two special guests. We have Tom Jolliffe.
Hi, everyone.
Friend of the show. Newcomer Nathan Lunn.
Good evening, everyone.
And later in the show, our regulars, Steve and Amanda, will be joining us, as well as Will Bentley, who will be chiming in on one of our other films. So, this episode is our 300th, count them, 300 episodes. We've been doing this for how long now, Rich? About 7 years?
I think it's like our ninth year, or
Ninth
eighth,
year.
or 8 or 9th year, yeah.
Oh, God. Yeah. Okay, so we've been doing this a while. God knows how we managed to get to 300. It's interesting that there is still a market for us to be digesting, as it were. And it seems of late to be proliferating as well. I mean, we're coming up to a period which that we know very well. The sort of Christmas period is when sort of original films seem to die off, and the market is swamped with re-releases, TV box sets, recent cinema releases on DVD and Blu-ray, lots and lots of 4K remasters and stuff coming out at the moment, and then sort of January, February time it picks up again. But of late, I'd say the sort of budgets we've been seeing have been a lot higher than possibly in the last couple of years.
Yeah, it's quite broad. I mean, the amount of obviously we're constantly swamped with films to cover because the online market is so busy with different channels and stuff, and so most releases are digital. But even the physical media side of things, which we keep an eye on with the DTV chart, is actually it looks pretty healthy. What we don't know is what the unit numbers are. So it's quite possible that the chart's looking healthy, but across the board, the numbers of physical copies must be lower, because there's no, there aren't the supermarkets and stuff selling the DVDs as much as there was and stuff like that. So, but we've still had quite a few weeks where you've had quite, like half a dozen releases or something, which there was a point of not too long ago where it really did seem like it was tailing off completely.
Yeah.
Physical media seems to be hanging on in there, and plenty of DTV releases, coming out still.
I mean, there have been a few weeks I know where, because we look at the top 100 DVD sort of physical releases which come out, and then sort of burrow down into which of those are DTV releases.
Yes.
And from that we extrapolate a top 5, and there has been occasions where that top 5 is consisted of like one film.
Yeah.
That has happened.
But recently that hasn't been. I mean, I used to have to put NAs, the gaps, because there was like 1 or 2 or whatever, but I haven't had to do that much this year. It's like there seems to be enough interest out there. There's enough releases being picked up from all sorts of levels, whether that's the stuff with the stars, like the Pierce Brosnans and the Samuel L. Jacksons or Mel Gibsons, to the the Asylum sort of knockoff films and stuff. So it's pretty broad, and still it's a surprise. It looks a surprisingly healthy time at the moment.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned Pierce Brosnan there. I mean, there's been, we've gone through the sort of period of sort of geezer teasers with the likes of the whole thing with Bruce Willis the last few years. Then you have people like, you get some people who are basically hired for the day by the looks of it. They come in, they shoot a couple of scenes, and then they're out of the film. And then you got people like Pierce Brosnan, who seems to have like embraced that sort of DTV era, but he's picking and choosing his roles a bit more, and you know, he is actually appearing in those films as as a proper star rather than sort of like we brought him in very cynically to you know get a few more sort of bums on seats or whatever.
Yeah, and people like, Guy Pearce as well. He's sort of
Yeah.
moving about. They all seem to move, these guys, between, theatrically released films, TV projects. Like, I think Pierce Brosnan was doing like Mobland with Guy Ritchie, if I'm not mistaken. I haven't watched it yet, but and then you've got other, on at the other end, you've got people like what's his name, Pete Davison with The Home. That wasn't a, that was he's quite a brand name now, and that was a film that came. Surprised, I thought that might get a cinema release, but that's been sort of hovering around different. I think it's gone to Prime now, and you can see it. And yeah, and we've still got your sci-fi actions with Lyndall Houghton, with Osiris, and cheap serial killer movies, and stuff from High Flyers. High Flyers are still extremely prolific.
Yeah.
For they've been going, God, donkey's years. Yeah, since I was growing up, I've been watching High Flyers films, and they're one of the strongest players in the market still, alongside Signature Entertainment, whose films like Red Sonja and stuff, and The Home recently have been doing really well. And yeah, so the market to me looks surprisingly, and then you've got other people like you'll get into some of the directors like Borley, like the Borley Rectory films, like Stephen M. Smith. So you got these, and Steve Lawson.
Yeah, exactly.
These guys working on really low budgets. Even their films are sort of coming up a notch, it seems to me.
Yeah.
There's they get. I'm really enjoying the stuff that we're seeing lately.
Absolutely. Which brings me on to Tom, actually, who's at the business end of sort of DTV, basically, as both a screenwriter and producer. How do you feel about the current state of the sort of lower end of the film industry, lower budget end, I should say?
Yeah, it's in a difficult place at the moment. I mean, it's quite hard to get funding on films at the moment. You get sort of, I suppose, the ITN level where they're so cheap to make that they're still being put out quite quickly and prolifically. But again, mentioning people like Pierce Brosnan, if you want to try and sort of make that step up and sort of get movies which still pre-sale, there's a very sort of shortening pool of talent that kind of still get the pre-sales internationally, which makes it slightly easier to fund the movie. So yeah, it's difficult trying to get the right kind of names attached to kind of get your movies off the ground. But yeah, I've been quite fortunate that I've still managed to get a fair bit of work and a few of my own movies off the ground as well. So yeah, myself and Nathan Shepker, we've got another one coming out fairly soon. So we've got kind of like a release date for that imminently.
Nice.
Yeah.
Is that Death Beyond the Pines?
That is it. Yeah. Death Among the Pines is sort
Death
of
Among the Pines.
Our sort of Hitchcockian sort of thriller inspired by sort of 90s pop boilers as well. So yeah, that should be kind of imminent. So we'll see. Hopefully we'll end up in the chart again.
Awesome.
I just want to give a quick mention that one of Tom's recent films, Cinderella's Revenge, has recently come to Prime Video. That's one I know, Tom. I think you've been particularly happy with that one. What with Natasha Henstridge being part of it?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. Yeah, that was quite a fun one to write. We'd been waiting quite a while for the UK release, as it happens, so it kind of ended up dropping without anyone really knowing, but that seems to be quite a common occurrence, really, that all of a sudden it'll just drop and it's there.
Well, I think we've even talked about situations where filmmakers haven't even realized that their film has come out.
Well,
because the distributor
you
didn't
guys have
even
let me know a couple of times. Yeah.
Okay, let's bring Nathan in. Nathan, we met you at the recent Mayhem Film Festival in Nottingham.
That's right.
And I believe you've got a book out or due to be out.
Yes, yeah, not nearly as prolific as Tom here, but I got a couple of things in the works. There's a book I'd wrote or finished, I suppose, writing earlier this year when I was out in Japan about the Kaiju genre. There's a couple of direct-to-video films referenced in there, which you might recognize the Asylum series. Is giant monster shark.
The Mega Shark series.
Mega Shark, that's the one, yes. I watched all of this in one day, which was quite an entertaining. I had fun by the end. Mega Shark versus Colossus, I think the last one that they made,
Yes.
ended up being quite an entertaining time, actually. So yeah, it was good fun to research and sort of exploring all corners of the genre, which I think, I mean, maybe you guys would better speak a bit more to it, but I think the kaiju genre does have somewhat of a life on direct-to-video, and I think especially as you say, thinking of those Asylum films, that sort of tendency to copy the trends, copy the current trends. I think certainly it's called like Ape versus Monster or something with kaiju films being as
Yeah, we
aren't.
covered the sequel.
Oh yes, I see. Do you recommend it? I didn't get around that one much, but
Actually, they're not bad. Yeah, I remember Steve liked it quite a lot. The thing is, it's interesting with Asylum. One of the very first films I ever covered when I started doing reviews was Mega Shark versus something octopus. It was giant octopus or something, and it was pretty bad. Except it did have what's her name, Debbie
Gibson
in the cast, but all the effect shots were in the trailer. So if you'd seen the trailer, you'd seen anything that was vaguely interesting in the film. But having said that, one of our other sort of previous host, Dave Wayne, he's a huge fan of Asylum stuff, and he kind of changed my opinion on their stuff. And we actually did a whole episode of Asylum films at one point, and we did have a good laugh with them. They are actually quite entertaining
well,
for the most part.
They have to. That's all they have to do, really. Is just be entertaining, and if they succeed, then they do. It's certainly. I don't know if with the kaiju genre, especially anyway, I sort of start off sometimes anyway. It depends on the quality of the film, but you start off from a place where you're just sort of looking to be entertained anyway. So, yeah, it was a fun day, I think. No, it's I've sort of explored a couple of other different direct-to-video. My taste is sort of in the genre film. That's where my main focus is. So,
yeah,
obviously. Sort of horror considerations and sci-fi and everything. There's a lot of different sort of direct-to-video series that I've kind of tried to explore, as it were. I think a lot of the case with horror is you have sort of the first maybe one or two films are kind of in long form series are the ones to watch in the cinemas, and then after the fact you get those direct-to-video releases. And honestly, I think there's a little bit more freedom in them, really, to kind of get a bit weird. I know the Hellraiser series, a lot of those ended up being direct to video after the fact, and I think Hellraiser 5 is one of my favorite ones. That's obviously Scott Derrickson, who then went on to do big things, obviously with the Black Phillip and Sinister and such. And it's you can kind of see the start of where he's going, and I think to me, I think that's what's really interesting is you get that sort of sense of a new place to start. Some people, I'm sure, kind of enjoy working in that sort of direct-to-video space, and other people maybe want to sort of move to more theatrical releases. And I think it's great to have that sort of community where you can kind of choose what it is you want to do within that space, really. So
absolutely,
you get guys like Derrickson breaking out in that sort of low-budget realm in exactly the same way as the guys did back in the 70s with Corman. That were going out and like even like Ron Howard, for example. He got his breakout by doing a car crash movie or whatever, and that's because he really wanted to be a director, but nobody would give him a chance. And makes a film with Roger Corman that gives him the confidence and sort of gets him, the experience, and then he goes on to, the huge things he has. And say Scott Derrickson, there's not so many examples of that kind of rise. It's very rare for directors to break out of DTV or whatever. But yeah, it does happen, and it's always really interesting.
It is, but at the same time, you do in the sort of DTV world, you do spot certain directors, and names keep popping up. You do sort of start following them. I mean, two series I quite liked. One was the Scorpion King films. So there was the theatrical one with The Rock, but then went DTV. But you had directors like Russell Mulcahy, sort of stepping in. He did one of them. He did one of the Resident Evil ones as well, which is pretty cool. Yeah, awesome. Okay, I'll tell you what. Let's crack on with some reviews. So in this particular episode, Tom, Nathan, and Rich and I are going to be covering 3 films. We have Bitter Taste, Please Don't Feed the Children, and The Partisan. Then with Steve and Amanda, we're going to be covering Borley Rectory, The Awakening, Forgive Us All, Guns and Moses, Snow Angel, and The House at Hallow End. And then Will Bentley is going to be joining me to talk about the faux documentary Strange Harvest. Our short shot is going to be Second Time Around. It's a short that we saw at the recent Mayhem Film Festival. And then we're going to have Michael Bean and Marge Helgenberger in Conundrum in our DTV throwback. So, without further ado, let's crack on. Our first film, then, is The Bitter Taste. A former pentathlete is captured by an undead countess and her cursed followers. To survive a deadly hunt, she must revive her athletic skills and form an uneasy alliance with a charming fisherman and a grumpy cop. Interesting film. Not sure if it's entirely successful. Directed by a guy somebody called Guido Tolki, who I've not come across before. But I did kind of like this up to a point. Tom, what did you make of it?
Yeah, I sort of echo your feelings there, Mike. It was a bit all over the place, really, and I know it's comfortably over 2 hours as well. It sort of starts off in a sort of most dangerous game mold, and then sort of progressively goes into. I mean, I'll give it that. It goes into territory that you don't quite expect. Partly because it's a bit of a mess, but also they just throw so many ideas at the screen. So I mean, it's kind of like perpetual motion and constantly moving. So you kind of you don't necessarily feel the length of the runtime quite as much as if it was sort of making you check your watch every 5 minutes. There's something always happening, and there's constant twists. But yeah, I mean, it's certainly difficult to kind of keep up with the nuances of what's going on and the plot itself. It kind of runs away and it almost escapes itself. I thought that the idea of pentathlon kind of playing a part in the film, because every kind of event in the pentathlon kind of gets used in some way.
Yeah, in that vein, it kind of reminded me of Jim Carter. In that, have you seen Jim Carter? You must have.
I've not seen it.
Oh my God!
No.
So Jim, have you seen it, Nathan?
I haven't noticed a blind spot for me, I'm afraid.
Okay, no worries. Okay, back in the 80s, all right, they made this martial arts movie. There was an American athlete I can't even remember his name, but he was a gold medalist in the Olympics and all this sort of stuff, and you know they're going to make him into the next big thing. So, you know, he's good on the you know the parallel bars and all that sort of stuff. And there's a sequence in the film where they're doing this sort of like race, and he ends up in this village, and he's been surrounded by these sort of guys who are kind of like zombies, you know, all scabby faces and that. And they're trying to get him, and there just happens to be in the middle of the town square a stone pommel horse for him to sort of do all of his sort of swinging legs and everything. It's brilliant. It really is brilliant. It is so stupidly contrived, and that's what I was reminded of a little bit of this. It's like, oh, now she needs to do a bit of fencing just as well. She, yeah, she was a medalist in the pentathlon. Um, one of the sort of key thing, one of the main giveaways that they kind of lost the plot, I think, on this one. They must have shot a lot of footage, and whoever the editor was probably, you know, did his best to try and make a coherent film. There's a whole sequence where the woman and her friend are in these catacombs, and she's literally reading from this book. She's actually spouting exposition from this book, explaining the backstory of what was going on, you know, with this countess and everything as they're walking. You know, she's tripping over her own feet because she's trying to sort of like explain to the audience why everything was happening. It's ridiculous. Nathan, did you see this one?
I did see this one, yeah. I think I'd have to agree really with the consensus here. It certainly did feel to me as though it was kind of holding off right until the end in terms of some of its more fantastical elements.
Yeah.
And obviously being sort of a more of a genre film fan, that was kind of what I was excited about. In a way, really, I had the most fun with that sort of final act. You know, you got she kind of gets dragged back and forth between the castle or the manor, sort of repetitively leaving and returning, as it were. And I wouldn't necessarily have a problem with that. One of my favorite films is The Seventh Curse. I don't know if either of you have
Oh
seen
yeah.
it.
Mhm.
That goes back and forth between the temple at least 8 times in that film, and you know, sort of part of the enjoyment is the weird structure. But I was waiting for them to really sort of get into the meat of, you know, the undead countess, as it were, and the followers. And when that sort of kicked in by the end, I was, you know, I was fully engaged with it by that point. And you know, yeah, I did enjoy myself by the end. I will say I think it was a little bit unclear sometimes what was going on, maybe visually. It was a little bit sort of shaky camera work, and
Yeah.
the sort of most of the sequences of sort of action, I was kind of a little bit lost, perhaps. But no, it was good fun, and I was surprised maybe by how much, because I'd sort of geared myself up by that point to think, well, maybe it's not going to be quite as fantastical, and then it sort of throws everything at the wall by the end, and you sort of, you know, practical effects, which I'm always a champion of, and the sort of more energetic kind of superhuman. I didn't understand. Maybe you guys could explain, perhaps. I didn't understand because she obviously got healed a little bit by the blood. She must have got some form of sort of superhuman strength because she was sort of running and sprinting and doing all of these flying kicks that just seemed. Maybe
Yeah.
that's just the skills of a pentathlete, but I wouldn't know myself.
But at the beginning of the film, she was limping. You know, she had this. You know, when we first meet her, she's a sort of, you know, physically damaged person.
Mm.
So yeah, very strange. Um, just quickly, do either of you know where this was actually made? I was just
I'm
quickly.
not too sure. Germany. I know it's part German. The film, I
Right.
think, isn't it? But
Because because it's you know filmed all the dialogues in English basically
yeah,
for the most part, which is interesting. No, unfortunately, IMDb is letting me down. It's usually it'll say what the locations were,
yeah.
but
I mean,
there
it's
you go.
got some nice
Oh
locations in
yeah,
it. There's a
Germany.
good mixture.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it was Germany indeed. Yeah,
They make good
cool.
use of the forest. They definitely make it seem like
Hmm.
it's a sort of a character in its own at some points. Really, it's because that's sort of it's all within that sort of area. It's right by the lakeside within the forest, and then the castle, and I think that they do a good job of capitalizing on the.
Yeah. I mean, overall, the production values are very good for this. They definitely had money to throw at it. As you say, the locations are good. It's for the most part well shot. Um, it's just if only they could nail down the script a bit better, and maybe sort of trim it by about 30 minutes. But other than that, yeah, it's a pretty solid film. So we score out of 10. What did you make of it? What were you going to score it, Nathan?
I'd say probably about a 6 by the end. I'd say 6 is
Yep.
probably fair.
Mm-hmm. Okay, and Tom?
Yeah, that's what I'm going to go with, a 6 as well.
In that case, 3 sixes for
Mhm.
the bitter taste. Go check it out. Our next film is The Cellar. A young girl wakes up imprisoned underground with amnesia. She must escape, unravel the mystery behind her captivity, and confront her personal struggles. A suspenseful tale of survival, truth, and inner turmoil unfolds. Or does it? Now, we actually covered this one, Nathan, earlier either earlier this year or sometime last year. However, I think there is some interest here. Not a hell of a lot, but there is some. In that, the film is kind of split into two, isn't it? So we have this woman basically escaping her surroundings, finding herself in this cellar, or is it a cellar? It seems to be like a catacomb and all sorts. But then also we have flashbacks to when she was in this sort of church self-help group, like something along the lines of Alcoholics Anonymous, sort of led by the priest, and the two are sort of juxtaposed together. But most of the film, I mean, all the dialogue scenes are basically in those flashbacks.
Mm.
Just about everything else is her sneaking around, trying not to get caught, and it's almost like one of those Splinter Cell games or a Hitman or something, you know. Um, but yeah, it's quite well shot for what it is. I think it is reasonably suspenseful. It goes totally off the rails at the end. I'm interested to know what you make of it.
Yes, yeah. Well, I'll try and avoid being hyperbolic because I'm known to be perhaps a little bit sometimes. But um, yeah, I think I had a couple of issues with in terms of maybe the suspense, as you're mentioning, really with the sort of silent attributes of it, as it were. My problem was that they never quite sort of toyed with it in the way that I was expecting, I suppose. So that sense of getting.
There's never any sort of near misses, is there? Sort of thing.
No, yeah,
You
it's
know,
there's a lot of sneaking around, but there doesn't seem to be too many consequences as a result.
hmm,
Um, and so I was sort of a little bit lost on the tension by that point. And I think as well that I admire the sense of sort of creating this mystery and sort of jumping back and forth between it. I quite like it when films do that. But I was certainly um, a little bit lost still as to, I guess, why she was there, and it took until sort of the end to really understand in a way, and that made it kind of difficult for me to care. Perhaps I try to be empathetic, I suppose, but I
hmm,
will say I did appreciate definitely that the lead was very resourceful and proactive.
hmm,
Um, it's kind of rare, really, isn't it? I guess, but it's always definitely nice to see them sort of working smart way,
yeah.
smartly, cleverly. And I do think, yeah, I did appreciate again some of the more supernatural elements. I do think the film was a little bit afraid to kind of really dig into them again there, and sort of really kind of um, focus towards more of that spectacle. But yeah, there's certain elements to champion, but I think this one maybe wasn't as much for me, which was a shame
Hmm,
because I did have higher expectations, I suppose, about it sounded more like my kind of premise.
hmm.
So as you've mentioned yourself, lots of films called The Cellar. some of them been some of my favorite films. The 10 Cloverfield Lane was originally a sort of Cellar based. I was sort of hoping for that. Maybe I went in with different expectations, but
Yeah, no, I agree. I think they could have done a better job of um, explaining why she was there. None of it really sort of went anywhere,
yeah,
really.
amounted to. Um,
Yeah.
it sort of had a non-conclusion in a way. It was
Hmm.
obviously avoiding spoilers, but it yeah, I sort of felt that there was maybe more that they could have explored with it because
Hmm.
by its description, it sort of and the sort of parallels it might draw, it seemed like it had sort of potential in that regard, but then yeah, didn't quite come to its ending, perhaps.
Unfortunately not. Okay, how are you going to score it?
I'm gonna give that a 2.
A two. Okay.
Out of 10.
Yeah, I'm a bit more generous. I'm going to give this one a 5. I think technically, from a technical point of view, it's fine.
No,
It's just that the story, from a story point of view, it's very weak, unfortunately. So a 2 and a 5 then for the Cellar. Go check it out if you haven't already. Our next film is Please Don't Feed the Children. In a dystopian future, a gang of orphans travels to the south in a quest for a new life after a viral outbreak decimates the adult population of the nation, only to find themselves at the mercy of a psychotic woman who is hiding a perilous secret. Been some good dystopian future movies of late. I don't know if any of you guys seen 40 Acres. No?
No, no, not
Uh,
seen that one.
it's very good. Um, this is interesting. It reminded me of a lot of films, this one.
Hmm.
Um, I did like the irony of these, these Americans trying to break out of America to Mexico, and having to sort of get over the wall and all that sort of stuff. I thought that tickled my fancy, that did. Um, it's quite well done. I think the opening bit is pretty decent, and it goes incredibly doolally at the end. And then you got the sort of the more sort of meaty mystery bits of what's going on in the house in the middle, where it's a bit sort of a bit like Misery to a certain degree. Um, there's a lot going on to sort of keep you interested with this one. Nathan, how did you get on with? Please, did you see this one?
No, sorry, I didn't get the chance
All
to
right, sorry, I'm glad. Sorry, I'll do that again.
apologies.
Tom, what did you make of Please Don't Feed the Children?
Yeah, I thought it was a bit of a mixed bag, really. Like you say, there's a lot of different influences in the film. I thought it took a little bit of a while to get going, and sort of all the kind of younger Gen Z characters in it were a little bit not really that well defined, I felt, and a little bit. I mean, they had certain archetypes and didn't really flesh anyone out to any great degree. But once it kind of gets to the house and it goes into sort of, misery territory and
Hmm.
then a little bit more intrigue in a few other films, I won't kind of mention too many comparisons because it will probably spoil it.
Yeah.
But yeah, it kind of has a bit of intrigue and it starts to build up the pace a little bit. And then, like you say, yeah, it kind of builds to this big finale. But um, yeah, it was just sort of lacking something, a bit of conviction for me, and maybe settling on maybe a couple of ideas rather than 4, 5, or 6, where they couldn't quite decide which avenue they wanted to go with it and do anything hugely with conviction.
Hmm.
But I thought, yeah, Michelle Dockery was really good in it. I think she was really the kind of standout. Um, doing her best sort of British villain
Hmm.
in an American film. Um, but I mean, certainly it was pretty well made. You'd expect nothing less from Spielberg Jr. though, wouldn't you?
That is absolutely true. Interestingly, IMDb's sort of bio for her makes no mention of her sort of famous dad, but there you go. Um, But yeah, the name gives it away, doesn't it? You can't get away from it. But yeah, the yeah, I felt the whole thing with the virus. I don't know if it sort of really fleshed out too much what it was. I mean, they sort of say, oh, yeah, only 1% of the kids got it, but all the adults got it. It didn't actually sort of say what it did, but I was wondering if it was going to sort of feed into what happens at the end, or who we're introduced to late in the film. But it seemed to be sort of two different things, if you see what I mean.
Yeah, yeah,
I mean, I did like the end. The ending just goes doolally. It's sort of like all the tension from that being built up just overboils, and it's yeah, it gets messy. It gets quite bleak, actually. It gets incredibly bleak right before the end. But yeah, which is quite interesting in itself. There was something else I was going to say about it. I can't remember what it is now. No, it's gone. Yeah, it's just weird. And then you got that cop. It turns up, from child services or something. He says, all of that sort of stuff.
yeah,
It just wasn't sort of like fleshed out enough to sort of say, well, it's kind of like frying pan fire kind of situation. It's like,
yeah,
oh look, we've been saved by the sheriff who's trying to round us all up. That's the best outcome for them. At some point in the film. But yeah, interesting one overall, I thought, but not entirely successful. What are you going to score it?
yeah. That would be my consensus on it. Really, that had it lent more towards what it just wanted to be, then it would have been slightly better. So I'm probably going to go with a 5 on that one.
Okay. Yeah. I think I'll join you. Yeah. 2 5s for Please Don't Feed the Children. Go check it out. Our next film is The Partisan. A Polish spy works for the British during the Second World War. After a betrayal, she is compromised in Warsaw and finds herself in a murky world of treachery in France. This is a very decent looking film, based on a real person, who was indeed a spy during the Second World War. Christina Skarbek, played by Morgan Polanski. We also got Malcolm McDowell, playing sort of the head of the circus, as it were, which is quite interesting. It's very, it looks great for one thing. Yeah, the production values are great. The time of place, I think, looks really, really good. I think what is strange about this is the character of Skarbek isn't the most sympathetic, I'd say. She doesn't really sort of endear herself to you very much, um, which I found quite difficult overall. But maybe that was just me. Nathan, what did you make of The Partisan?
Yeah, I definitely agree with you on the sort of sense of authenticity, I suppose. I think it did look fantastic, really, in terms of how they're sort of able to render the world and all the different sort of areas they visit. There was clear effort taken, really, to create that kind of believable, recognizable aesthetic, and I think it did a really good job of sort of putting you into that. I never felt sort of drawn out of the time period it was supposed to be, which was really, really impressive. I think I'd agree with the characterization. It sort of, I suppose it was a little bit more morally grey, perhaps, which is, with spy work, maybe kind of goes with the job, but I think they could have done a little bit more to kind of endear you to her, maybe. to sort of understand a little bit better maybe what it is, or sort of why it is she's doing what she's doing. Outside of just the moral reasons, but obviously the sort of, I guess, motivations, as it were. But no, I did enjoy it, and I think maybe I think as well, one of my points was sort of around its lack of extravagant set pieces. I think it's all sort of, despite it sort of having a good sense of time and place, it does feel kind of small in scope, in terms of what it's sort of trying to accomplish, action wise, I suppose, if we could call it an action thriller, perhaps. So yeah, maybe I would have liked them to have done a little bit more in the world that they built. Don't be afraid to kind of destroy the set if it looks good. It can be challenging to let it go, but yeah.
There's a couple of interesting things. Funny enough, what I was just saying about Please Don't Feed the Children, in that, there are times when you think, yeah, you didn't have to bother dressing the set. And there's scenes, for example, when she goes into this small town in France, posing as a teacher from Leon, and she's going down all these little sort of streets and things, and it's a very sort of quaint sort of French village, and I'm thinking, yeah, that hasn't changed. That's probably what it looks like now. They didn't have to sort of do anything to it to make it sort of look oldie worldy. That is what France looks like when you get outside the cities. But the other thing was with this, I was sort of saying, oh yeah, she's quite an sympathetic character, and I agree with you, Nathan, that that is possibly because of the nature of her work and that. And in that regard, I was reminded of another film that Mads Mikkelsen did a while back called Flame and Citron, which was about two Danish freedom fighters or resistance fighters who were assassinating sort of Danish collaborators, basically. So anyone is sort of like in the police and that, and we get something of that in this one. It's one of the first films set during the Second World War, which was willing to show the French, what they used to call the Vichy French, who were like, the people who actually did collaborate with the Germans, and help them, act as sort of police and all the rest of it. A lot of films set in the Second World War kind of whitewash that a bit, but this one, I suppose, being Polish, they didn't give a fuck, basically. so yeah, there was that sort of element to it. Rich, how did you get on with the Partisan?
Yeah, I liked it. I think I would have liked a bit more meat on the bone, as it were. I see it kind of, the film sets out its agenda at the start, saying we're going to tell the story of the start of her career as a spy, and basically her first mission and her last mission.
Yeah.
And I think there's a lot more that we could have got out of the story. I mean, there's a few books about Christina Skarbek, one of which I've listened to the audiobook of, by Claire Mully, which is The Spy Who Loved. The title being an intentional callback to Ian Fleming and James Bond, because Christina Skarbek's missions and adventures or whatever is said to have been an influence on Ian Fleming, whether especially probably the Bond girls, but a little bit of Bond himself as well, I believe. Is that that's the kind of it's not known as fact. It's just one of those things that's kind of got into lore and that. So she's better known as Christine Granville, and I thought there was an interesting point in this at the end. I think they composite a couple of her identities. When she goes to France, they call her, unless I misheard, Pauline Granville.
That's right.
Because one of her other identities was Pauline, and I'm not sure what her second name was, but but she had an identity with Pauline, and she had the Christine Granville identity, and she was said to be one of Churchill's favourites. The film is, I say, it caught my attention because it's Polish co-production with the United Kingdom and the United States. It's got a British director, James Marquand, as Tom has highlighted to us, is the son of Richard Mark I, or as he suspected. We've verified, and yeah, I thought, and it had some guys, some Polish actors that I recognised in it, so it was interesting to see them. So there's a guy called Piotr Adamczyk. He plays the basic lead Nazi character. He wasn't in it as much as I hoped, because he kind of comes in at the beginning, and then I was like, oh, is he not going to? Oh, okay, he comes in at the end, and he gets quite a big scene towards the end. So I was quite glad for that, but I was hoping to get a bit more of him. And there's a few other Polish actors that I recognised playing supporting characters. But yeah, and obviously the curiosity factor of Morgan Polanski, Roman Polanski's daughter, playing the lead was interesting. I thought she was okay, but a little bit probably sort of reinforcing kind of a couple of things that you were saying about the way the character is written and presented. She's not. She's very distant, I would say. You know, you don't kind of warm to her, and which is interesting because you hear all these stories about Christina Skarbeck and how almost like magnetic she was. You know, she was this such a vibrant character that she had this amazing life and stuff, and you didn't kind of get that from her performance. It was a bit more subdued, I would say, and yeah, so
I think
yeah.
a good example of that is that scene when the whole bit at the beginning is her saying, "Get me into Warsaw. I need to rescue my mum," kind of thing, and then her mum, spoilers, gets killed, and she's like, "Oh well," and just like dumpty dumpty dum, just walks off, sort of thing. Never mentions it again. But it seems weird considering how much she was insisting. You'd have thought it would hit her harder, but there you go.
Yeah, and there were a couple of things like at the beginning you see her traipsing through the snow and stuff to get through, and that's a very fleeting moment. But that was a journey. That was a big journey that she had to do, I believe, multiple times because she kept going back, and I think I would have liked to have seen a bit more. There's such a big story there. Do you see what I mean? And it didn't feel like it was telling the best parts of it. I noticed there was actually a few. There are, say, a good number of recognizable people. I will say this is a high flyers release, but it's like it's one they kind of put out as a prestige release. They actually put this in a few cinemas just a few weeks ago. It was only in about was it just over a dozen. So it didn't take a huge amount of money when it was in cinema, but they wanted to give it its bow, and I think it had a premiere event and stuff like that. And I can see why. It's definitely got that. You got Malcolm McDowell. He's a DTV player, for donkey's ears. But if you put him in a cinema release, he doesn't seem out of place. He's still got, he's still Malcolm McDowell. He can bring it when he wants to, and he's pretty good in this. And he's got a good presence. He's always got that good presence. But then you've got recognizable faces like Ingvar Sigurdsson, the Icelandic actor from films like Northman and Everest. He's in there, and there was another guy I recognized, and I was like, "Is he the guy from Mission Impossible?" And it was. His name is Frederick Schmidt, and he played Zola in Fallout and Dead Reckoning. The sister of Vanessa Kirby's character. Sorry, the brother of Vanessa Kirby's character in those films. So he's quite good. I quite enjoyed him. But yeah, it's fine. It's watchable. It's definitely the kind of thing I'd watch with my other half, and we would quite enjoy it. But I've seen a lot better of this kind of thing.
Yeah, I'd have to agree with that. Okay, scores on the doors. So Nathan.
Yeah, I think I'm back at a solid 6 again, really.
Mm-hmm.
Sitting comfortably there.
Awesome. And Rich?
I think I'm going to let it have a 7. It's decent enough. It's very polished. It's well made.
Yeah, I'm going to join you on a 7 for this one. Okay, so 1 6 and 2 7s for the Partisan. Go check it out. Our next film is Borley Rectory: The Awakening. In 1900, young Reverend Henry Bull and his sister Kitty are tasked with taking over the duties of their family home in Essex, a majestic Victorian mansion built on the site of an old monastery. Unaware of the sinister forces that lurk within, the pair are soon confronted by terrifying paranormal activities that threaten their loved ones. Um, Been a lot of films about Borley Rectory over the years. It is renowned as being the most haunted place in England, if you believe in such things. I actually did go to Borley once and went into a chapel there with my mum, and she actually got freaked out by it. She said the atmosphere in there was actually really, really weird. So yeah, it is an interesting place. But and we've covered other films about Borley Rectory in the past. I think we did one called The Ghosts of Borley Rectory a while
Thanks.
ago. But yeah, and I'm pretty sure who's that other low budget filmmaker?
I know what you mean. Oh shit.
Yeah, him.
Yeah. I mean,
I'm pretty sure he's someone a long
yeah.
time ago. Anyway, so but this is got a semi decent cast. So we got Patsy Kensit in there as a sort of the overbearing matriarch. We got Simon Phillips, who's a guy I used to hate. I used to hate his films, but he has sort of turned into a pretty decent character actor over the years. When he's not being overly shouty, you can actually sort of get into his performances. And also, is it Julian Glover is also in there? So it's a pretty decent cast. So production values are pretty decent, but is it scary? I don't think it actually manages that, unfortunately. Okay, over to Amanda. What did you make of Borley Rectory: The Awakening?
Yeah, I agree that it's not scary. It's very, very light on the spooky stuff.
Hmm.
It has that like lots of nice wandering about in candlelight. Gives it some nice vibes and it looks really great. The settings are really great. Costumes look good, performances are good, but overall it's just sort of missing the spooky bit.
Hmm. Yeah,
Um,
even with the
yeah,
seance at the end, it just doesn't really sort of grab. It seems
yeah.
to be more. It's more about the conspiracies and the secrets, the family secrets. I think that's sort of more what's driving the film than the actual scares. Steve, what did you make of this one?
Yeah, it's not scary at all. It's not. It's more like Downton with a bit of, ghosts thrown in the background type of thing.
Uh,
But it's like, but what are you saying actually about Simon Simon Paul
Phillips.
Phillips? Sorry,
Yeah.
Simon Phillips.
Hmm.
I thought he was actually really good in this, and like I said, we've seen quite a few years before, and I've not been too taken with him, but I thought
Hmm.
in this he was actually really, really good. Especially in like the seance scene at the end. I was very, very surprised. But yeah, I kind of expected a bit more from it,
Hmm.
to be fair. Um, it kind of reminded me of what a lot of films are doing since Insidious,
Oh yeah.
where if it is a ghost, it's not really they're not really sure to be a ghost, it's just like in a costume, if you know what I mean.
Mhm.
There's no
Oh,
it,
so
what?
actually, that opening bit I thought was
Hmm.
actually pretty decent. You know the bit where they're telling the ghost story, and
Yeah,
I thought that worked really, really well. I thought,
yeah, yeah,
so kudos for that. Yeah.
yeah. But it's like I don't know, they just don't seem to be putting effort into the scares like that. They just
Mm.
stick them in a costume and stick them in a car and say, "Oh, look, spooky," and that's
Mm.
about it. Um, but yeah, performances are all right. I mean, it's done well. It's just not scary enough.
Exactly. Yeah, I totally agree. I do like your description of this as being like an episode of Downton Abbey if they
Mm,
if they ate a bit of rum cheese. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
Had a bit of rum cheese last night. It gave us all a
yeah.
bit a bit of a bad dream. Yeah, but other than that, okay. fine. Yeah, it's fine for what it is, but it's not going to raise any hairs on the back of your neck or anything like that, unfortunately. On that note, how are you going to score it, Amanda?
I'd probably give it a 6. It's nice
Mhm.
looking. It's got good vibes. It's just missing the scary stuff.
Yeah. And Steve,
Yeah, I'll give it a 6 as well.
why not? 3 6s for Borley
Ooh.
Rectory. Borley Rectory. Is it The Awakening or The Beginning? The Awakening. There you go. Go check it out. Our next film is Forgive Us All. In a dystopian future, a virus has made humans into violent cannibals. A woman sheltering in a mountain cabin must decide to help when a stranger on the run from the totalitarian GMA organization arrives. The only escape is through the cannibal-infested forest. We covered, Amanda, a film just the other episode about a guy transporting a young woman across the desert in a post-apocalyptic landscape where there was zombies and then there was but man is actually the real monster here kind of scenarios.
Oh yeah, I
Uh,
mean there was it Paul W.S. Anderson film earlier this year, which
there's
is the
that as
same a
well.
guy escorting a witch across a wasteland.
Yeah.
Oh, is that
Oh,
Into the Badlands?
Yeah,
yeah. There's that.
it's
It
actually
seems to be
humans at the problem.
the thing at the moment.
Yeah.
But but we did cover one just the other week. And there was that one with Guy Pearce as well, which was a western, where he was transporting a woman and a young girl across a wasteland, but in the Old West. Of those sort of films, I think this is one of the better ones. I think this is actually quite well made. I think it's got the action scenes are actually action. There's actual action on screen. There's stuff going on. It does sort of get all sort of very maudlin in the middle, as these things do, but it does sort of perk up at the end. I yeah, of the films of this sort, I thought this was pretty decent. Um, do either of you disagree? Let's go to Steve.
Yes. I just thought the whole thing was maudlin. I really did. I mean, even the first, the first 5 minutes, the intro, and you know where it's going. You know what's. I could see the ending coming a mile off. Really could. And I mean, it just drags, and it takes about 20 minutes for the guy to show up or whatever, and to kick the story off really. And I'm like, it's just taking too long. And like I said, it's so maudlin especially in the middle, and then the end. And I'm like, it didn't do anything for me. Really didn't. I mean, it looks nice. Set in the woods and everything. It looked really nice, but I was just bored. Really, really bored. I didn't care about the characters at all as well. It's like you say, it's nothing that we haven't seen before a million times. I mean, to try to do a bit of a spin on it, but I just didn't think it worked.
Fair enough. It's a good job you didn't watch Red. What was it called? Red something or other. Red Plague. There we go. Which is the one I was alluding to.
That was the one, yeah.
Yeah, which is very similar. I think this is set in Australia or New Zealand.
Australia, I think.
Yeah. Okay. But yeah, I think I liked it a bit more. How about you, Amanda? What do you make of this one?
Yeah, it was all right.
Yeah.
I really liked Lily Sullivan. I thought she was great.
Yeah, she was in Evil Dead
Evil
Rise.
Dead Rise, yeah. Looks great. Like the Western vibe, nice locations, but yeah, it meandered a bit. And were the cannibals or were they zombies? Because they felt like zombies.
Yeah, I
I think
think
it's more
that's
like a 28 days later. It's like
sort
a
of like
virus
rage
rather,
virus.
Oh,
yeah,
right,
rather
okay,
than
yeah.
zombie type thing.
Okay.
Mhm.
But yeah, the nice idea just wasn't doing much for me.
I think there's another film we've covered this week on this episode called "Please Don't Feed the Children," which is another dystopian future virus gone amok movie. But yeah, it seems to be the thing, and unfortunately, they do all look like each other. There's not a lot. It's the scenery, if anything. Oh, this is the zombie one in the forest, or this is the
Yeah.
zombie one in the desert. That's basically it. They do have very similar beats to them.
Yeah.
Now I I read, because I'm an idiot. I looked at the reviews on IMDb for this, and some of them, as I've said before, people giving it like 1 star and all this sort of stuff, and saying, "Oh, never make a movie again," and all this. And I'm thinking, well, it does look pretty decent, and it's acted pretty well. It's just the story that's sort of holding it up,
Yeah.
really. And the only thing I could really see about the negative reviews is the fact that this is directed by a woman. That's basically what it boiled down to. As a woman's actually directed a zombie movie, how dare she? Is the vibe. So this is directed by a person called Jordana Scott. It's the first feature film. So she co-wrote it as well. Yeah, in comparison with the countless others of this ilk, this does stand out a bit because it's got some decent action beats. It's got a decent score to go with it, and I did like the sort of downbeat ending. That's me. So this manages to get from me a 7 out of 10. How about you, Steve?
A 5.
5 from you,
Yeah.
and Amanda.
I think a 6.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Okay, nice spread. A 5, a 6, and a 7 for Forgive Us All. Go check it out. Our next film is The House at Hallow End, also known as The Beldam. A struggling new mother fights a generations-old presence lurking within her family home, threatening her safety, her sanity, and the life of her infant child. Now, unfortunately, Amanda nor I managed to get to see this one because the screener had expired. So it's over to Steve to tell us about the Beldam, the House at Hallow End.
Right, okay. So with this one, it's very hard to go into in a way. So young mother comes to live with her mother and new partner who are flipping houses, buying them cheap, doing them up, flogging them on. So they're in the middle of doing this project when she turns up, and then she starts, seeing things, having visions. And there's like niggling things that like CPS have been involved with her and a child, and she had the child taken away from her for a little bit and things like that. And there's a massive, massive twist, which makes sense. First of all, you're like, what? And then it's kind of revealed a bit more, and it's a really good analogy. But I can't go into it. It's just going to spoil it, the whole film.
Spoilers ahead.
Yeah, but I actually, at first I was a bit like, yeah, same old, we've seen it before, blah, blah, blah. But the twist is an absolute kicker. It's comes not out of nowhere, but you're like, wow, okay. And then it does make the film. It's really good. I mean, the performances are great, especially the mum who used to be in, I think it was called The Middle, the sitcom The
Oh
Middle.
yeah.
Mm.
Yeah. And I mean, I've not watched it. I've seen bits of it and stuff like that, but
hmm
character's so different in this. It's really good. And the partner is Corbin Bernsen,
Yeah. hmm
who's really good as well. And it's just shot really well. And yeah, I really, really enjoyed this one. But
But
it's one of them you have to see it. You can't really
mm.
explain it.
So I managed to watch the trailer for this,
Yeah.
which doesn't give anything away from what I could tell,
Yeah.
or is very oblique. But
Mm.
there does seem to be a sort of a magpie motif running through the film.
Yeah, there's like a bird that keeps coming through.
Mm,
Like at the start, it's like, comes through the chimney and gets trapped in the house, and then it kind of grows from there and stuff like that. But yeah.
mm. Yeah, I mean it looks very well produced.
Mm.
It's got a good look to it. Um, Yeah, I mean, again, there's little bits in the trailer that sort of like give it hints, but I don't want to say what it's hinting at because it'll
Hmm.
make it worse. I really do want to see this, and I was a bit gutted that our screener had expired.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, couldn't get a replacement in time. Anyway, how are you going to score it?
I'll give it an 8.
Wow.
Mm.
Okay then. Yeah, we're talking business.
It's
Right.
it's one of them. While you're watching it, I was like, but it
Mm,
sticks with you after,
Yeah.
and you think
that's
about it,
cool.
and
Yeah.
yeah,
Is this sort of one of those ones where when the twist revealed, you sort of like start piecing together what you've already seen
yeah,
to sort of
yeah.
see how, it sort of puts a new spin on it. Brilliant. Awesome. Okay, that is a high recommendation from Steve, an 8 for The House at Hallow End. Go check it out. Next up is Guns and Moses. A beloved small town rabbi in the high desert becomes an unlikely gunslinger after his community is violently attacked. Okay, so I initially switched this off after about 15 minutes, thinking, oh God, I don't think I can sit through this. Um, and there wasn't anything really particularly wrong with it. It's just I don't know. The whole thing just seemed very alien.
Mm.
Community and everything, and I just wasn't sort of getting it. Even with the murder and everything that happens early on. But I did sort of switch it back on eventually, and oh my God, I really enjoyed this. I actually really did like this in the end. I've mentioned quite a few times. One of the things I do enjoy is a detective story where the main character isn't officially a detective, and using other skills to actually sort of do their investigation. That usually it's something which it's a situation they're sort of thrust into, but but they're so intrigued by it they have to sort of investigate, and that's kind of what happens here. This kid gets arrested for the murder of one of their members. Um, but he just can't let it lie. It's something about it. He keeps eating away at him. Yeah, the whole thing. There's a moment in this which was actually really shocking, and actually made me swear out loud.
Mhm.
Which is when they go to the solar farm.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, that was brilliant. It really got me. I like the fact that the film spends time showing him learning how to use a gun.
Mm.
Mm.
All of that stuff was great, and not just him, but his wife as well. And how that all plays out at the end, I thought was great. Yeah, no, I was totally on board with this one in the end. Yeah, totally loved it. Amanda, what did you make of Guns and Moses?
You know what? I quite liked it too. It moves along at a really nice pace, and it did keep me guessing quite a bit. I did find the investigation parts a lot better than the action stuff, but there wasn't a lot of that anyway. So
hmm
I don't think it needed that body cam stuff. That felt like it was part of another film.
Yeah, I
I thought
agree.
the acting was pretty decent. I mean, it's a little bit hammy, the script, but no, I did enjoy it. I thought they did a good job with it.
Yeah, totally. How about you, Steve?
Yeah, I enjoyed it. It's not the best in the world. The main problem I have with it, I think the title is a bit too on the nose.
It
Really,
is a bit, yeah,
Yeah.
a bit
it's
too
like,
jokey
come
for
on,
what it is. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, because it is a serious film. It's not. What it just seems like it is a bit of a jokey title, but yeah, like I said, I like the background stuff, and he's actually learning. He's not just picking up a gun and like, oh yeah, look at me, I'm well, he's actually learning to shoot it. He's learning stuff, and look, the fact that the kid who's arrested is basically a Nazi, and probably
Hmm.
would be the first
Mm.
suspect on the list,
Yeah.
But like I say, he just niggles at him. He knows it can't be him. He thinks it can't be him, but so he investigates it, and he's not a police officer. He's not trained in anything like that, but he's just using his intuition, and yeah, like you say, I did like that about it. And it's decent cast as well. You've got
So got a very good cast. Yeah.
yeah, Christopher Lloyd, Dermot Mulroney, Neil
Mhm.
McDonough. It's not a shabby cast.
Mm. Yeah. Craig Sheffer, of course, he was in Nightbreed. That'll fix it.
Yay!
Yes, but it was a very good cast. It's a very, very good film. And how are you going to score it, Steve?
I'll give it 7.
Yeah, and Amanda.
Yeah, same. I'd give it a 7.
It's a very solid 7 for me as well. Yeah, 3 lucky 7s for Guns and Moses. Go check it out. Our next film is Snow Angel. In the aftermath of a fatal accident in a snowy village at the eastern tip of Quebec, a screwed up ex-pro snowboarder decides to pack up a cabin and leave town for good. But someone or something seems intent on stopping her. So I was convinced at the beginning that we had an in media res situation because it goes straight into this car crash. But then I was surprised that all the events of the film seem to be in its aftermath. And we're following this woman around called MJ, who was a survivor of this crash, trying to sort of decide whether or not to piece her life back together or to leave. Her best friend isn't talking to her. She's kind of been ostracized a bit by the locals, and you're not sort of totally sure why. She keeps saying that her boyfriend was the one driving and all this sort of stuff. Um, Again, we have seen this kind of film before.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There are familiarities. I think it does a good job of hiding its twist. It's a particular twist that's been used before by bigger films, but I think it does a pretty decent job of hiding it. There's one particular confrontation on a doorstep when her best friend is sort of screaming at her,
Mm.
which I thought worked really well. But when you think about it again, it still works.
Yeah.
It does still work. The issue with this is whether or not the sort of the melodrama of it is enough to keep you watching, I think, and whether or not you want to find out all the how horrible all the characters are, basically. What do you make of this one, Steve?
Yeah, it is. It is a bit like that. It is very, very bleak. And it's jumping about from timeline to timeline, really. Before and leading up to the accident, and then the accident after the accident, stuff like that. And Yeah, there's not much let up, really, is there, in the moroseness? It's because, like I say, all the characters are mainly dicks. And don't get me wrong, it's not going to be, there's no perfect people in the world, but yeah, they are all awful people, really. And it does drag a bit, but like you say, the twist at the end does redeem it a bit. But yeah, I mean, I do kind of like films like this because they always look beautiful. You can't get around it with the snow and all that lot. And yeah, I thought the performances were really good, especially the main girl and the kind of bloke who she's seeing type thing. Thought they were really good.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's we've seen it before, but it's done well.
Yeah, I agree. Amanda, how about you? What do you make of this one?
Yeah, I don't think it was for me. Yeah, the lead performance was great. I did like the twist. It's nothing new, but I did like it. It did work, but it was so drawn out, and my interest kind of kept dipping in and out.
Yeah.
Yeah, so yeah, I don't think it was for me.
I mean, it's interesting, isn't it? All the films we're looking at this, for this section, at least, all hit the sort of 90-minute mark, and some have actually sort of felt quite brisk, and others have sort of like really sort of felt they've outstayed their welcome a bit. I agree. With this sort of kind of story, where a lot of the plot is focused on keeping the audience in the dark.
Yeah.
Until as much as possible as to what's really happened. It does feel like it's sort of spinning its wheels and going over old ground a lot. Really, there's only so much it can tell us before it can really sort of tell us, if you see what I mean. And I think that's where it does sort of suffer. Unfortunately, I wouldn't be surprised if this was originally sort of planned as a stage play or something.
Yeah.
There you go. Okay, so I think scores are going to vary here. Amanda, how are you going to score it?
I'd probably give it a 5.
A 5 from you, and Steve?
I'll go 6.
Yeah, I think I'm going to give it a 6. 2 6s and a 5 for Snow Angel. Go check it out. Our next film is Strange Harvest. Detectives are thrust into a chilling hunt for Mr. Shiny, a sadistic serial killer from the past whose return marks the beginning of a new wave of grotesque, otherworldly crimes tied to a dark cosmic force. So this is one of my favorite kinds of found footage films. It's not really found footage, but it does sort of fall into that sort of general genre. It is the faux documentary setup is what we got here. So, places like Netflix are awash with this style of documentary, this sort of true crime kind of thing, which is what this is imitating. My wife, she loves those sort of things, so I'm really interested in watching this with her at some point, I must admit. This goes the extra mile, I think, in terms of gruesomeness. It doesn't hold back on the sort of crime scene footage and photos. Obviously, we're not seeing anyone get killed, but we are seeing their remains and all this sort of stuff. It is pretty gruesome, wouldn't you say, Will?
Oh yeah. I mean, yeah, that's an understatement. It really was it was surprising to me. And in fact, like, to sort of refer to what you were saying, like that type of, that kind of streaming service, or Netflix or Channel 5 true crime documentary that you're talking about, it really hits the note. And for me, I actually wasn't I went into it kind of not 100% sure. I was like, oh, is this actually, you know, a real thing, or is it like an homage to a real case or something like that? You know, is it you know, is that what it is? You know, preparing to be kind of fooled, if you see what I mean, like deliberately.
Yeah.
And it was the first kind of crime scene video that was like, no, this is definitely a drama. There's no way that anyone's going to show this on, you know, on like a streaming service if it was a real case. Like the first murder, like that tableau that ran in the dining room, was awful. It was really quite shocking.
It really was, yeah. So it, you know, there's no it doesn't hold back basically. So we get this sort of the you know, the body cam footage from these two officers after go in. What is initially meant to be like a welfare check on this family because you know the mother's missed a lunch date. The kids haven't been in school for a couple of days, and they go in and they find the family, sort of mum, dad, and daughter, all taped up and sat at this table where they've just been left to die. Basically, it is really, really gruesome. It really is sort of Silence of the Lambs kind of stuff.
It was bad. It was bad.
But what the kicker as well from that scene is you've got this symbol painted in their blood on the ceiling, which is a pretty high ceiling. You know, it's not something they would have been able to sort of reach up and do. So yeah, it is a crazy way to sort of kick off the film, that's for sure.
Yeah, and I mean, it was jarring, and it was, I'd say, aside from the fact that the crime scene, you know, the crime scene video, whatever, the body cam footage was just way more, like it was a lot. It was way more than you would ever see on a. They actually pitched it perfectly. I thought it was brilliant. I thought it was everything was just how it would have if it was a real true crime documentary. You know, they nailed it, and like as a result, it sort of builds, you know, very, very slowly in the kind of in a way of a crime scene thing to, you know, what's happening, and then you realize there's just extra layers to it as they try and kind of peel away. Well, who is he? What's he trying to do? Was just brilliantly done, because it was all done with the sort of, you know, methodical police procedural stuff of an investigation, and you know, so each kind of revelation of who he is and what's actually going on comes through with all their sort of cynicism and skepticism and stuff. You know, but you've got this kind of creeping sense of dread, because it really did a number on me. I've got to admit, it was a good scary movie.
Because I mean, there are certain elements in this which are incredibly sort of grotesque and horrifying. There's the bit with the 16-year-old girl who gets attacked in a room, and then what happens later, which is like just completely out there. But I think the worst bit is the guy who well, basically death by leeches. Is what it boils down to, and you know, there's a scene in Seven when they find the guy who's been killed by gluttony. And Morgan Freeman is sort of saying we found 2 grocery receipts. You know, this guy basically force fed him all of these ravioli or noodles, whatever, and then had to go and get more, and then come back and continue. And that's exactly what's, you know, the thing with the leeches. You know, when you hear the details, and they're sort of saying, yeah, he had to be constantly sort of putting leeches into the pool and then taking the ones which are gorged out and all this. You know, it was
fresh ones in.
It's not like you know, fire and forget kind of scenario. He has to be, you know, this was a horrific sort of murder, which took time to do.
It was like Seven, and he had a number in mind as well, didn't he? So like they knew that they were against his kind of target number.
That's it.
And like and you're thinking, and he's just going through all of this bizarre effort and these really weird, grotesque crimes, and they've got no idea what why he's going to all this effort, sort of thing, and they're
Yeah.
sort of slowly building up, like, well, what's it all about? What does it all mean?
It's when they start breaking it down, which is sort of the third act of the film is where they're sort of looking at the symbolism that he's using and how that relates to sort of cosmic events which are coming up and all this sort of stuff. And it's all really interesting. And if it was a straight narrative film, like, a more traditional narrative film, it would be building up to this sort of big sort of cosmic event, and everything would be happening. But because it isn't, and we're sort of grounded by these two detectives, so you got Detective Joe Kirby and Alexis Taylor, who are seasoned homicide detectives within the sheriff's department.
Yeah,
and
they're very hard boiled.
It's something my dad was telling me recently as well about Air Force pilots and aircraft carriers, sort of captains and this sort of thing, recording all these events of like encountering UFOs, literally stuff they couldn't explain, but even having video footage of it and never ever reporting it because they knew that would be the end of their career.
Yeah.
They would never ever go and be yoinked off the bridge or whatever.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like that. You get to the end of this thing, and you got this detective. He will not speculate on what he himself has actually seen. There's sort of video footage of stuff happening at the end, and he's like, I don't know what to tell you.
Yeah.
We got the guy, whatever. But that's literally all he can really sort of say, because his, he's so grounded in reality, sort of thing. All he's seeing is a guy sort of committing really, really horrible crimes. He won't sort of speculate any further than that.
And they both are. Like the other detective, Alexis. They're both quite. He seems more messed up by it. Like he's the one who has to have a break and go outside for a cigarette and stuff when they're recording, and she seems a lot more like, right, just whatever, get on with it. Like,
she's sort of more, well, we got the bastard, so that's all I'm worried about. Sort of thing. So this is directed, just probably 2 secs, by a guy called Stuart Ortiz. Right, he previously made a couple of films. His most famous one is called Grave Encounters, which is it's a found footage film, but it kind of broke the mold of what a found footage film usually contains, because a lot of found footage films is people creeping around in the dark down corridors or whatever, hearing something, but you never actually sort of seeing anything. Lots of people running around, all the rest of it, until you sort of see a glimpse of something right at the end. What he did with Grave Encounters is he put in loads of special effects. So even though it was a found footage film, you're looking through the lens of like a camcorder or whatever. You're actually seeing stuff happening on screen. Which really, really sort of changed the way things were done. He kind of shat the bed a little bit with the sequel, Grave Encounters 2, because in that film, the film Grave Encounters exists in that world.
Okay, but it's self-referential postmodernism there.
Exactly, and people are going, "Ooh, was that film real? Should we go check it out? All this sort of stuff. All the controversy around Grave Encounters. Let's go film in the same location. It's literally the same film. And but this is completely different to a found footage film, in that the amount of people and the amount of work that had to go into this to build up those profiles of people. So you got the people being interviewed, but then you also got to bring in all those photographs. You got to have all of those authentic looking sound bites from the news.
Oh, that was to be honest, that's one thing I noticed at the end when they, actually, no, I'm going to dodge spoilers, but it's sort of towards the culmination of the film, and they've got like, they're showing every presumably made up TV network reporting on it.
Yeah.
Like, how much effort would that have taken to do?
Exactly,
Like, that's like, 5 or 6 different kind of network news. And tonight, this, that, and the other. And it's like, that's loads of artists, loads of CG new studio, banner headlines across the bottom and all the rest of it.
Yeah.
And it's like that honestly there's nothing you can knock in this film. Like there really isn't. The effort they've put in is phenomenal.
Yeah, but even exactly. All that sort of like all the evidence, all the photographs of the bodies and that sort of thing. It's got to put it all together to make this as authentic, authentic looking as possible.
Yeah.
Which really sort of sets it apart from your sort of typical, sort of found footage effort, I think. Yeah, I love this sort of film. There's another one, just as an aside, there's another film coming out called Man Finds Tape, which we saw recently.
Interesting.
Which is another sort of documentary style, but but again with this sort of Lovecraftian horror at the center of it, which is definitely going to be worth looking out for.
Why am I immediately thinking of Man Bites Dog?
Yeah, no, it's nothing like that at all. Yeah, it's a lot more easygoing than
Good,
something like
that was messed up.
Yeah, that was messed up. Yeah, definitely. So, how are you going to score The Strange Harvest?
I mean, it really, for what it set out to do, it did it. Like it really, it just did. And I think the idea and the execution were. I was racking my brains like yesterday, thinking, what would I criticize? And like literally, the only thing that I could say that made you perhaps realize, apart from the fact that they showed all of the gruesome stuff when you, but then you're watching a horror movie, and if you and it is a fictional horror, so that's not, you can't knock them for that, is the fact that the interviews they weren't clearly scripted. It wasn't pat. It wasn't cheesy. It's just that you realise when if you watch any true crime documentary, there's ums and ers because people are, when people are unscripted.
Oh yeah,
and in that movie last night, that is like literally the only thing that was missing. Everyone played their parts beautifully. The writing was brilliantly layered, and it fitted what it was like purporting to be so brilliantly. I think it's got to be a 9, and I've not given a 9 out in a very long time, I don't think. But it's like literally only a 9, because I think that and like I say, I'm reaching here. Like if some of the interviews had been a little bit more unguarded and a few more ums and ers, it would have been indistinguishable from a true crime documentary. And I'm actually feeling a bit Scrooge like for not giving them a 10, honestly. Like I don't, do we do 9.5?
Well, no, we don't tend to do halves, but I can count on one hand, and I don't think on the digest, I don't think I've ever given anything a 10. No film is perfect.
I was going to say, are we waiting for some mythical kind of exceptional thing to come along that leaves you in a state of stupor where you're sort of unhappy to be back in the real world when it finishes?
That's the one. Yeah, like the character in 2001. And he's going on that trip. Got the kaleidoscopic effect. That sort of thing. All the face meltings Nazis in Raiders of the Lost Ark,
something that affects you, something that affects so significantly.
Just poking your eyes out after seeing it, because
I'll never see anything as good again. Right, okay. Well, that makes me feel better. Than if there's a DTV standard that we're waiting for, that we're hoping for this mythical kind of grail of films to come along. Then
absolutely, yeah. Maybe if PM Entertainment got back together or something and gave us Car Crash after Car Crash, maybe. Right, I'm going to join you on a 9. I totally agree. This was just great. It's very gruesome. Don't be fooled by the fact that it's a faux documentary. They don't hold back on what you see here. Definitely not for the squeamish at all. But if you like the idea of a police procedural which sort of bleeds into something more occultish and even sort of like Lovecraftian towards the end. I thought it was absolutely great and definitely worth checking out. So there you have it, 2 9s for Strange Harvest. Go check it out. Our short shot this week is The Second Time Around. On a rainy night while closing a cafe, a waitress is confronted by a mysterious older woman. This is one of the films that was shown during the short film showcase at Mayhem. Me and Rich both thought this was the standout of the second day. Was it the second day this was on?
I think it was the first day.
The first, yeah, I think
It was the first one, yeah. In that case, yeah, probably the best. It was the standout of the two programs, I think. Very well made, very well. The cinematography is particularly striking in this, for what is basically a conversation between two women. It is very interesting. It's one of those films where you're not sure what's going on to begin with, and I'm thinking, is she a psychopath? Is she is she going to try and kill her or anything? What is this? But as she talks, you sort of realize, you kind of pick up on what's actually happened without anyone actually sort of saying what's actually happened, and it's very clever in that way. Yeah. So Nathan, what do you think of this one?
Yeah, I'd have to agree with you. Definitely, it sort of played with a bit of a horror sting when she first appeared, didn't it? And I was obviously at the festival we're at. I was wondering, oh, is it going to go? What direction is it going around? But it tells a pretty sort of non-complicated story, but it's definitely emotionally strong. I think, yeah, it's one of those things where you come away from it like, oh, that's kind of tragic, but also really nice. And it's nice to kind of you do sort of work out, as you say, before it's even, or it doesn't even need to be said really, but even maybe before that point, you're sort of like, oh, I think I know where they're going with this. And it's yeah, it's just kind of affirming and heartwarming in a way. And I agree. I think it was shot in a very gorgeous sort of way, especially bringing attention to the main players of the film. Really, is it kind of and I guess acted as well pretty well, because you really get a sense of the chemistry of all three of the people that are kind of that sort of a sense of maybe interacting with someone from a while back, as it were, but still having that same kind of play, that same kind of back and forth. And yeah, I really, really enjoyed this. So.
Yeah, it was very good. Tom, did you get a chance to see this?
I did, yeah. I really enjoyed this one. Yeah, just like you guys say, it's really impeccably made, technically, really well shot. I really like the music as well, very kind of low key and ambient, and didn't really impose itself too much on the picture, but it kind of lifted it at the right moments. But yeah, really well acted as well. Caroline Goodall in particular, who action fans will probably remember from Cliffhanger back in the day.
Yeah, absolutely. It's interesting, this one, Rich, isn't it? Because it leaves a lot unsaid, in terms of how this is happening and all the rest of it, and whether or not it's going to make any difference. The other thing is, like, was she present the first time around, or did she just, all of this sort of stuff plays in your head after you've watched it, for sure. What are your thoughts on it now, sort of a couple of weeks after?
Yeah, no, yeah, I've watched it basically. So I love this. It was, as Nathan was saying, it's playing at this Mayhem festival where you're expecting horror and sci-fi and all sorts of weird stuff and whatever. And this actually, you just didn't know what to expect, and actually it ends up just being a really heartwarming, light fantasy sort of conversational thing. So it could be, is it something that's happening? Is it a time travel-y kind of thing where it's happening in the real world, or is it an afterlife kind of thing, or is it a dream, or just that none of that is established or explained, and it doesn't really need to be. It just works really nicely, and and it's funny because it's called The Second Time Around, but when you go and watch it the second time, you pick up even more on the clues that are peppered through the story as it unfolds. It's only short; it's like 12 minutes long, but the way they talk, everything has a meaning that they sort of talk, and it's relevant in some way. And you're picking up a bit when you're watching it, but you're not sure. But after then you go back and you say, oh yeah, okay, yeah, so they did that and whatever, and yeah, it works really nicely. It's made by Jack Howard, and I think because he's got masses of credits and he on IMDb, but I think they're Nathan, your other half, was saying he's an active YouTuber, I believe.
Yeah, there's sort of a collection of them that make a couple of different shorts here and there. It's a YouTube collective, as it were.
Right. And I know he also does some like podcast, however you want to talk about, with Mark Kermode now as well. But I think this is his first, although he's got masses of credits, I think this is the one he's kind of really sort of pushing out there as like his first real narrative, film, or attempt to move towards making full narrative features, I think, and stuff. So yeah, he's been an actor and does comedy and stuff, I think. But yes, this is very, I would say, considering what I've heard about him, having not seen any of his other stuff, this seems actually not what you would expect. It's quite a restrained kind of thing, and also it's a story about women, and stuff. So it's it's lovely. It's very emotionally moving, and I will go back to on what both of you, some of you guys have said about the cinematography is fantastic. It's this it's a one location story with two actors, or three, but you know what I'm saying. The location just what looks great, and it's shot really well. So it's another film that's it's probably been written with a certain budget in mind, and they've been able to put the bells and whistles and really polish it up. So it looks fantastic. Cinematographer was Kieran O'Brien, and yeah, the soundtrack, that sort of ambient score that just sort of carries you along, and it's like an ethereal sort of quality to it. And Caroline Goodall's performance, as she comes in, she looks like a mad woman kind of thing at the start, and you're not sure what she's going to do, and you got the waitress who's being really sweet with her and stuff, and they have this very nice encounter that ultimately has more greater meaning to it. It's great. When we were at Mayhem, I was really immediately like, I want to see this again, and it turned out that on that day, I believe, that we saw it, that it had just hit Channel 4's online platform, the app, basically, the Channel 4 app. And Jack Howard has posted on his Instagrams and stuff that it's going to be there for a year. So go and check it out. It's we'll put a link in the footnotes. So I do highly recommend it. So I do think it's one of the best shorts of the year that I've seen, certainly.
But Amanda, what did you make of The Second Time Around?
Oh, it was lovely. It's such like a really beautiful, really charming way to look at love and loss. The actresses were great. They created like a really good tension, and their interactions felt very real. And I really liked the set, and it had that like a kind of dreamlike feel, but it was also, because it was a cafe, it felt very familiar, like somewhere we've all been at some point in our lives.
Yeah,
but I loved it. I thought it worked so well.
It does work really well, and it looks absolutely fantastic. Steve, what did you make of it?
I hated it. No, I'm joking. No, I really enjoyed it, actually. It, like you say, it's really nice meditation on love and loss and stuff like that, and you've got that little tiny supernatural twist at the end, which I really enjoyed. Now, when you sent it through and saw the name, and I realised it's the director and writer is a guy called Jack Howard.
Yeah,
Who features a lot on Mark Kermode's podcast,
Oh, okay.
Kermode on Film, and he's quite a funny guy. You know, he's like half the age of Kermode, so they have quite decent debates and stuff like that. And I knew he'd done a couple of shorts, but I didn't know where they were available or what they were, or anything like that. And Say's wrote it as well and directed it. I just think he's done a really, really good job, and I can't wait to see. I think he's planning features. I hope he is, because I really enjoyed it. I mean, it's not really flashy or anything like that. You know, it's just set in a cafe. But there's one shot where she goes into the kitchen. I think she's looking for the lost property, and you can just see through the kitchen and through the hatch and into the cafe, and the woman stood there. And I just thought that shot was just framed perfectly. I thought it was really, really nicely shot. And, you know, everything else, it isn't flashy or anything like that. It's just nicely done. But yeah, the performances and the scripts I thought were absolutely top notch. Really did.
So it was interesting for me and Rich watching this because, as I said, it was in the middle of a horror festival. And you know, the way she appears at the beginning, and you're just like, oh, what's happening here? You know, you're kind of dreading what might actually occur. But then you know the penny starts dropping as to what she's actually talking about, and it's really, really interesting. Yeah, no, this knocked our socks off. Thoroughly enjoyed it, and you know we've recorded it with Nathan and Tom and Rich, but I wanted to get your thoughts on it as well. So there we go. Awesome. We don't score the shots, but we do recommend you check them out. As I said, this is on Channel 4, and we'll put a link in the footnotes below. Go check it out. Absolutely. Just to echo what Rich has just said, we don't score the shots, but we do recommend you go check them out, and you'll find the link to this one in the footnotes below. Go check it out. Our DTV throwback this week is Conundrum. Two cops who share a devotion to their work and to each other suddenly find themselves caught in a tangled web of unspoken passions, lies, and accusations when they each become suspects in a brutal mob-style murder. Okay, from 1996, starring Marge Helgenberger from CSI and Michael Biehn, newcomer, never heard of him. Of course. As two cops who aren't very good at their jobs, basically. Every time they do something, somebody's basically looking over their shoulder going, nah. You know, if anytime they arrest somebody, their bosses are going, "No, you're doing it wrong. You've done it wrong again. You have to let them go." It's surprising they're still cops, basically. But in the middle of this big investigation that they're doing into sort of the Chinese mob and a gambling circuit and all this sort of stuff, Michael Biehn's wife gets murdered, and both of them end up sort of as suspects. It's quite, I don't know, the first half of it is very much sort of police procedural stuff. The second half of it is a bit more sort of interesting as I try to sort of figure out what the hell's going on. So Nathan, what did you make of Conundrum?
Yeah, it was a bit I suppose it's interesting you mentioned it sort of being in two halves. I was kind of more engaged, as it were, with maybe the first well, I guess maybe the first and third acts, as it would be maybe considered. I quite liked their chemistry, you know, as sort of cop partners, and then didn't like that they ended up being romantically involved. That sort of took the film down a route I wasn't quite as I preferred them as friends, but I mean, you know, but no, it sort of brings it back around by the end, doesn't it, to sort of focus back again on the mob and sort of the criminal proceedings, I suppose, to really come together. And I obviously avoiding spoilers or anything, but I do think it comes together quite strongly by the end. As a side note, just because this came to mind when I was watching it, but obviously Michael Biehn, you joked about him not being very well known. In my head, I was like, I know who this is. I was recognizing him. He sort of looked kind of like a young version of Trey Parker to me. I don't know if he's ever heard that, but he probably hasn't ever heard that before. But no, it was fun. I do think they worked, as I say, they worked really well together in that sort of that buddy cop chemistry, as it were. Maybe less so in the in the romantical. So I don't know. What were you guys' thoughts on the sort of development of their relationship, as it were? Did that sort of work for you guys, or
Tom?
It was a bit of an odd choice, but it felt like it played to a lot of the tropes of those kind of like early to mid 90s thrillers. So you then have to kind of have those sort of strange damaged relationships kind of thrown in. I mean, it didn't have a lot in the way of logic, I suppose, but yeah, I did find it was kind of compelling, particularly the more it went on. Yeah, I quite enjoyed it.
I suppose it does sort of provide a motive for the murder, and then that gets you guessing as to, well, yeah, maybe one of them did do it, what, to sort of get out of the marriage, or to have him alter themselves and all this sort of stuff. Because there was one other element, wasn't there, that that she'd just announced that she'd been pregnant as well. Maybe that was, that could have been seen as a tipping point. But anyway, Rich, what did you make of Conundrum? Had you seen it before? I mean, this one had totally passed me by.
No, I hadn't seen it. I actually hadn't heard of it because although I do like a Michael Biehn movie every now and again, this wasn't one
Time
I'd
bomb.
actually
Yeah.
this wasn't one I'd actually come across before. It's a film that was made for Showtime, the cable
I am.
the cable net. Well, it's still, I think it's still got. It's a part of Paramount now, isn't it? Showtime. Now they do shows like Dexter and stuff.
Peaks the Return?
Yeah, so this was a period in the mid 90s where they were doing where there was lots of, it was the rise of HBO, wasn't it? So there were lots of it was still TV movies essentially, but it was like they could do the stuff that you can't do in regular. So in the case of this one, for no real reason, we get Mark Hellenberger naked in the bath, but which you wouldn't be able to do on ABC or whatever, but you could do on a cable channel.
On the cable channel, yeah.
So this is kind of the Netflix of its time, it's like the Netflixes and all that kind of thing of that time. Yeah, it's got kind of a slow start, so it's interesting because it starts with this close up of what I think is a Komodo dragon.
That's
and
right.
it just made me think. I was just looking at that thinking, yeah. So when Steven Spielberg was doing Jurassic Park, he modeled the velociraptors on a Komodo dragon. So that was the first thing that was coming to my mind. So it was an interesting start. And there's a fantastic stunt because Michael Bihn's character is chasing after a guy, and his character's hanging on the back of the motorcycle and gets dragged around.
That's
and
right.
I don't think I've seen that before. So I thought that was a really cool stunt that made it stand out for me. There's something that feels, I'm sure it's on purpose, but there's stuff that feels really off about the relationship. I mean, it culminates kind of, when they're when they're both in the bar, and they're dancing and stuff, and it all feels a bit too close. But even before that, there's stuff about Michael Bihn's character. What's his name? Is it Stavek? Stash Horvath.
Horvath,
yeah. So Horvath's, he's just the way he acts, like, so he's like me. He's saying goodbye to his wife in front of his partner, and he's just like kissing her, like putting on a display. But it seems like there's an intention behind it that's not just I'm being really romantic with my wife kind of stuff. And there's other bits, and then it ultimately sort of develops into what was kind of a popular theme. I mean, they probably still do it on like Lifetime and stuff, but it's the kind of, did they do it? You know, it's like, can I trust this person? A kind of plot line sort of unfolds, and then you know, the film focuses more on one of the characters as they're sort of evaluating, you know, what has really happened here. You know, what the murder and you know how it went back. I think it kind of develops in a fairly expected way, but it's fairly satisfactory. But it's got a very weird. It's got a few weird moments. I mean, like, even at the end, you get to the end, and there's the characters, and they're having this. They're talking, and the dialogue just seems a bit too, I don't know, oblique or trying too hard. I was like, I didn't really get the point that they were trying to make, so I did have to kind of watch it a couple of times to really sort of to get what the character was actually saying and get it. And you know, it so because I don't want to spoil anything, but I did get it by the end, but I thought that it's a bit heavy for what this kind of film is. I could see where they were going with it, but it just seemed a bit too not nihilistic, but sort of what's the word? Where it's kind of, what's the point of it all? Sort of depressing kind of ending. It's not. It's a very sort of bleak. That's what I'm trying to think of. It's got quite a bleak ending, which for a sort of mainstream thriller of the time, I you know, it's not. There's not like this triumphant sort of moment at the end or anything. So it's quite interesting. It's a bit risky, I suppose, in that sense. But yeah, it was made by, written and directed by Douglas Barr.
Douglas Barr, not Bill Burr.
Douglas Barr, who did did films like hang on. Oh, done a lot of TV movies.
He's done loads of TV stuff.
Loads of TV stuff.
Lots of TV shows in his sort of filmography, which
Ed McBain's 87th Precinct.
Most people haven't heard of. Yeah, One West Waikiki and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah, Sweet Valley High is on his resume as well. So yeah, very much TV movies kind of stuff. So yeah, I thought it was okay, but I didn't really connect with it that well. But I like, you know, these are actors I enjoy. Now, here's one thing I wanted to mention. There's a bit where, actually, there's a few things I'm going to mention, but there's a bit where they discover the wife's body, and they don't. And the whole point of the scene is that they don't show it.
Yeah,
that you're just lingering on Michael Bihn's expression and stuff, and for a really uncomfortably long amount of time, and it almost becomes comical by the end, because he's just sort of really drawing out this shocked face. But then they insert these black and white shots of like close-ups of aspects of the crime, of bits of the crime scene. And I thought it was funny because this was 1996, and Robert Rodriguez did essentially exactly the same thing in From Dusk Till Dawn, when George Clooney walks in with Richie, and he sees what Richie's done.
Richie, what's the matter with you?
Sorry, and so I'm sure that had been done before, but I just thought it was funny that I'm sure they were in production around the same time, so I don't think anyone's copied anyone, because you know, they wouldn't have been able to copy in that amount of time.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think the title of the film is a bit of a letdown, because it's just not a very good title for the film. It's not very compelling. Frame by Frame is the other title, which is probably a bit better, although not by much, I would say. I was quite, because of the time when it was made, it's quite shocking to see the chickens all being hung up by their feet. They're going to get slaughtered and plucked and stuff. You would never see that now, not in that kind of same way. So that was, I did think that for a moment that they were actually going to show the chickens being killed, because they would have. I mean, that was happening. There's lots of that kind of stuff back in the day. You know, it's not a million, but yeah, seeing it was still quite distressing. I didn't like it. I mean, I eat chickens, but you know, it's one of those things you don't really want to see it. Yeah. So but it was very weird to see. The botched stakeout scene was quite amusing, and what was it? Written. I've written down crawling around an empty room, but I can't remember why I wrote that down. So I don't know what that was all about. Oh, that was what yeah, one of the characters is giving a speech. Yeah, yeah. Okay.
Mhm.
That was the bit I didn't really understand at the end. Yeah, sorry.
Mhm.
Yeah. Do you guys know what I mean about that? The crawling around an empty room? That was without, going into details. That was the bit that was puzzling me. It was like, why are they saying that? And then I was like, right, I figured it out. Okay. But I didn't understand what was going on at first. But yeah, the film is worth seeing for the hanging on the back of a motorbike stunt, really, to me.
Mhm. So Tom, you suggested this one for us out of a few titles. What can you tell us? No, do that again. Tom, you came to us with this one. What are your thoughts on it?
Yeah, no, I quite enjoyed it. I think it rests a lot on the two main actors. Um, and yeah, there's I think Michael Biehn, as the film progresses, kind of his performance gets a bit kind of bigger, I suppose, in certain ways. I don't want to give too much away, but I mean, he's uh he's kind of enjoying himself, I think. Yeah, I mean, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense at times, and then there's obviously things that are thrown in, but that seemed to be a hallmark of all those sort of straight to video films and straight to kind of HBO
Mm.
films back in the day, particularly that one that almost teeters into the like the Shannon Tweed mold of film as well.
Mm.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, they were all very popular at the time, weren't they?
yeah, but you know,
Yeah.
no, I thought it was sort it had enough to sort of pass the time. Um, yeah, it wasn't quite as good as I remembered when I watched it way back in sort of the early days of Channel 5 is probably when I first saw it.
Oh, it's
Probably in
very
the
Channel 5. Yeah, it's very
yeah,
Mm.
Channel 5.
dead of night, Channel 5, yeah.
Did any of you guys see Excessive Force with Thomas Ian Griffith? Because I always remembered that a little bit with this one.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think so. Although to be honest, I always get excessive force and ulterior motives confused.
Mm. Excessive
Which
Force
is the
is the
one?
one
Which is the one with the twist where he's not the hero?
that's ulterior motive.
Right. Okay. And
Yeah,
excessive force is the
is the
what
one
happens
with
in that?
Lance Henriksen doing kickboxing.
Oh yeah. Need to revisit that actually.
uh,
I remember
cool.
there was an excessive force to force on force.
Yeah.
It's like get the same word in 3 times in your title.
Genius. Right. Well, again, we don't score the throwbacks, but we do recommend you go and check them out. Hopefully, we've enthused you to maybe pique your interest and go find this one. It's available on Amazon Prime, if you remember. I'm sure it's on other services as well. Um, and if you're a Michael Biehn completist like some of us are, it's definitely worth going and finding. There you go. That is the end of
Before we
this part
go,
of the show. Yeah,
I'm sorry.
go on,
No,
you
sorry.
carry on. No, it's all right
No,
because I was gonna wind up, and I thought no, I don't need to wind up because we still got other stuff to record later on. So yeah, jump in.
um, no. Before we move the show on, I just wanted to find out from Tom a bit more about his new Wizard of Oz project that he's written for Louisa Warren. Because I saw the poster art sort of floating around, and initially I had no idea that it was one of yours, Tom. I wanted
Yeah.
I'd like to sort of find out a bit more about what the sort of scenario is for that, the Dead Walk.
Yeah, it's well, it's obviously horror based. So
Hmm.
um yeah, I wrote that at the beginning of the year. It's kind of it'll kind of have similar vibes to I don't know if you saw Cuckoo. Um
It's on my list.
yeah. So it's kind of got similar vibes to that. And I do believe there's another Wizard of Oz sort of themed horror film coming out quite soon as well. So we could have two falling at the same time. But it's it's just the kind of standard horror thing, and particularly focused on the Tin Man and the Scarecrow, who kind of get brought back onto Earth and go on a bit of a rampage. So yeah, following in the vein of Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey, and all that stuff.
Yeah.
Whether or not it gets the same kind of reach, I don't know, but we'll see.
Yeah, Louisa Warren's she just produces and directs and whatever so many of these films. I mean, one of the films she's produced is called I Know What You Did Last Christmas, which has just come out. So
Yeah, not one of mine.
No, I know that's not. That's written by C.M. Wright. But you're talking about that other Wizard of Oz. There's probably a few of them coming around because they're all trying. There's all these different.
Is this because the copyrights expired now on the Wizard of Oz, and it's
I think that must have expired years ago, mustn't it?
Yeah, that's fairly long expired. I think. Yeah.
Is that on the book? The book version? Is it the book rights, not the film?
Yeah, it'll be the book version. Yeah.
It's a good palate cleanser after Wicked for Good, perhaps.
Well, I think I expect it's going to get released around that time. I would be very surprised if it didn't come out very soon, being that say the artwork's sort of floating around there. But it would be a good time to release it, wouldn't it?
Yeah. I wrote it sort of fairly similar time to a couple of other films that have just dropped as well. So there's one called A Tailor-Made Romance, and then there's one called Love Lattes and Christmas Lights. So both kind of rom-com sort of films, so maybe not as much to do in post. But I wrote them probably a month before Wizard of Oz, so going by that, that Wizard of Oz could come out reasonably soon, maybe before the end of the year. But yeah, we'll see.
Yeah, one of your films that I've been meaning to see, it's been out for quite some time now, is your War of the Worlds one, War of the Worlds: The Attack. That really it's got some really eye-catching artwork, and I was really wanting to check it out, but I just haven't had a chance to yet. But you've done so many different things, and like you say, you do work a lot in, sci-fi, horror, action. But yeah, I was quite surprised to see you doing things like Christmas with the Prince and all these sorts of what we would now call Hallmark movies.
Yeah,
it's like that seems quite another sort of very popular area now that people are commissioning, because there's so many slots on these channels that they just want to fill up. I mean, you got these Lifetime Hallmark kind of things. I mean, Channel 5 is like the UK equivalent of those. I don't think we have a Hallmark channel, but all that stuff goes on Channel 5. They love an Eric Roberts, Stalked by Your Doctor kind of film and stuff like that, don't they? As well as all these mismatched Christmas jumpers kind of movies. But the other, I don't know if it's the one you meant, but Mike, do you remember ages ago we did a short film called Gale, Stay Away from Oz?
Yes.
Yeah,
that was like a trailer, wasn't it? It was like a fake trailer for a film. Yeah, that was really good.
Yeah, so it was like made up as a short. It's like a proof of concept trailer. We covered. Then they made a short film version about half an hour long, but it was only available on one particular platform, which I don't know if I ever actually subscribed to it, but I never got to see it, so I don't know if it actually is still out there. But I do know that they were trying to flesh that out to a feature or make a separate feature from that at some point as well. So yeah, I think there's lots to be mined from stuff like the World of Oz and all this Winnie the Pooh. Bambi the Reckoning is a film recently that's done really well in the charts. I think it was number one of the week, in terms of DTV releases that we were recording this, which is quite a surprise to me, because that's we've had like a lot of Popeye the Sailor Man films, and the what's the Mickey Mouse? The Mickey
Steamboat,
Mouse
isn't
stuff.
Yeah.
Well, Screenboat got a cinema release, so that's not, we can't even review that one, unfortunately. But that was
not on this channel anyway. Yeah.
No, yeah. So have you you haven't really done a lot of public domain stuff, have you, Tom? Apart from The Wizard of Oz.
So I suppose Cinderella. Well, yeah, kind of. No, not really. Cinderella, War of the Worlds, and Wizard of Oz, I think.
Yeah.
Is probably probably the ones. But I did turn down Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey.
Do you regret that now, considering it blew up in such a? I mean, obviously it was a double-edged sword, because it was all over the internet and got huge notices, cinema release, big reviews, but then it was absolutely slated. So it was kind of like,
well, it won.
It made a lot of money.
Yeah, it won a Razzie for worst screenplay, and I don't think I would have avoided that. So I've avoided being a Razzie winner. So I'll probably say I don't. Well, again, part of the reason I turned it down was to do Cinderella's Revenge, and I did that basically because I got to work with Mark Lester.
Yeah, brilliant.
Cool. And then ultimately Natasha Henstridge as well. I didn't know that when I accepted the role of that at first, but yeah, that was an added bonus.
Absolutely. Yeah. Nathan, now that you've finished your Kaiju book, what are your next plans?
Yeah, I'm not too sure actually. I'm kind of between plans at the moment. No, I'm sort of putting a couple of different things together, but I think I kind of want to explore a little bit into film noir. I've always kind of been drawn to classic film noir and also neo-noir. I think there's a really interesting juxtaposition between the two genres that are sort of, in a way, they're kind of the same and completely different in terms of what they're tackling. So, yeah, that might be my next avenue of research. But a couple of different lectures here and there, and a couple of screenings. So just smaller projects for the time being. It was definitely a mammoth, if you might, a gargantuan kaiju based task, but it was great fun. It was great fun. So I know I definitely want to sort of move forward and do another sort of large scale research project in the future. But
awesome.
I just want to say that the book is called They Come from Planet Earth, The Themes of Kaiju Cinema, and it's currently available to pre-order. You head over to your bookseller of choice, and it's I believe due to release next October. Nathan?
Yes, yeah. Thank you, Richard. I tend to forget to say the name whenever I'm talking about it. We did an interview recently for Dead Duck cult film, and my girlfriend had to remind me of the fact that I had a book coming out in the first place, and also to say what the title was. So yeah, I definitely appreciate that. Sometime next year. So if you're interested in kaiju films, I definitely think it's a fantastic place to start. And if you're well versed, it's equally an interesting place for you to sort of delve further and deeper into some of my ideas on the genre. But yeah,
great.
Pick it up, perhaps.
And that is the end of this week's show. My thanks to our special guests, Tom Jolliffe and Nathan Lunn and Will Bentley, for participating in this special mammoth episode, as well as our regulars Steve, Amanda and Richard. Don't forget to check us out on Facebook, X and Blue Sky at the DTV Digest, and look out in the new year for the revamped Short Shot podcast, where we will be curating and talking about short genre films. Other than that, thank you for listening and tune in next time.
Thank you for listening to the DTV Digest. Let us know your thoughts in the comments and tune in again next time.